morning, everyone, and welcome to the second ever Game Design Cuppa. I'm Matthew Dunstan, your host. How's everyone doing on this fine Wednesday morning slash Wednesday evening slash Wednesday, very, middle of the night, early on in the US, I guess. Hope everyone's doing well. Yes, my second kind of stream, trying out a sort of a new time. I'm normally streaming in the sort of late afternoon, evenings, European time, but I'm doing this once a week. Got my cup of tea. Help me wake up a little bit. How's everyone going? Hey Rob, how you going? First one here. I was doing some playtesting with Rob for another for Start Player Robert. He's known on the internet. His game Number Station last night on TTS. We went relatively late, and we're both the first ones up again in the morning to talk a bit more about games or think about games or things like that. So hope you got some rest, Rob. But yeah, it was actually quite a good game. It's a sort of around the theme of, hey Rory, how you going? Good morning. You see, like your profile picture, you're already set up for Board Game Cuppa. You literally have, well, I don't actually know whether that's beer or tea, but I'm going to say it's tea or coffee. So it fits very well into the Game Design Cuppa ethos. So it was a game based around number stations, which I think I knew a little bit about, but there were these sort of radio frequencies that automatically would broadcast sort of noises or beeps or sounds. Oh, that's right, Rob. You're right. Yeah, you're even. Yeah, I'm gonna have to change my profile pic. And yeah, they were these sort of ghost radio stations that would send out on a particular frequency, and some of them are still going. And they were sort of involved in spycraft. They were shortwave radio, so they could travel far away. I was even reading about a Czech spy who was caught in London in the 70s, I think, who was getting numbers from a Prague a number station based in Prague. So I live in Prague, for those who don't know. So that was kind of interesting to me. And and this game was sort of around, you were different number stations and you were trying to communicate with your agents and, achieve various missions and things like that, which was kind of fun. Hi, your friend Dakota. Welcome. Thanks for dropping by. Yeah, number stations it's quite cool. I have been doing some backgrounding. I think I had heard of number stations before. I have a colleague in academia who's a professor in physics. And he's a sort of a radio enthusiast, so he builds his own sort of antennas and receivers at home, and I think like listening into these number stations is definitely one of those kind of like hobbies, like train spotting or something, like it's an interesting hobby for those who do it. And as far as I understand, some of them, quite a few of them are still running, and nobody wants to sort of own up to whether they're happening or not, and these sort of things. So yeah, I think it's a cool theme. I think it's a great, it's great to have a bit of a different spin on the kind of normal spy game genre, which was kind of cool. Rob says there was a self-aware neurotic number station in Welcome to Night Vale. If you come across that, okay. I don't know what Welcome to Night Vale is. Is it a game or is it a TV show or something? I haven't heard of it. Maybe I might be showing my either my age or my non Britishness. when I lived in the UK, I would there would be always these sort of points of reference sometimes that I would just miss because I'm Australian, so I didn't grow up there. But yeah, so what is everyone up to on this fine morning / evening / afternoon, wherever you are in the world? I'm sort of starting the day. I think today is going to probably be a bit more research rather than game design, probably. I have a few things to write on that side, but there's a few other kind of game related things that I need to sort of do. And actually the interesting thing I was gonna these are a bit more of a loose format than my normal streams, which so these are a little bit like just chatting about game design. So as I said, if you've got any questions or things you want to chat about, just drop it in the chat. Happy to be led onto any form of tangent all the time. And speaking of our first tangent, Welcome to Night Vale is a bizarre fiction podcast with a feel that looks, it feels a bit like the Cthulhu mythos, but different. It's been running for quite a few years now. Okay, interesting. I shall look up. Hey Arnold, how are you going? So for those who don't know, this is Arnold Rowers of who's Tiny Touch Tales, fantastic mobile game developer, mobile app developer, and we're collaborating on a game, a new prototype called Card Crawl Adventure, which we hope will release this year sometime. But go and check out his stream if you copy his username, and he streamed sort of a look back on his year. It was really fantastic, and yeah, well, thanks for joining, Arnold. Anyway, but yeah, good luck with it. I mean, yeah, I feel actually, yeah, I will probably play test the latest version today. That's something I can add to my list. Yeah, it's definitely been a new experience for me working on a sort of a digital game prototype, and Arnold is an absolute machine. So I do my best to keep up with how much he's doing, which is great. Oh, great! Rory is a big Ennio fan. Probably my most played mobile game. Oh, great! Great to see some love. Well, I certainly recommend checking out Arnold's other games. His most recent release is called Nomater, with like a G, like a gnome, like a small person. Nomater, which is sort of a free solitaire style game. Really simple, but really fun and beautifully illustrated and things like that. So I would definitely recommend checking that out. Yeah, so we're trying to make sort of a roguelike card game, deck builder, but still on a mobile, optimized for a mobile app sort of game, and short sort of play sessions and things like that. And I'm really happy with how we're going. I think we're both staring down the barrel of realizing just how much work it's going to be. Creating content, but also balancing all that content, and any of these games where you have these sort of positive feedback loops, like deck building games and like roguelike games, small small sort of power deviations very early on in the game. If you have like an item or a card that is far too good, then it sort of permeates through the whole run, and sometimes that's great, because I think part of the fun of roguelikes is like building a deck that's just completely bonkers, crazy powerful, and that's really memorable, and then you win, and that's great. But I guess you don't want that to happen too often, otherwise it's not so special. So yeah, I was glad to hear that. Yeah, well, I hope that everything's going well, Arnold. Yeah, I know it's all of us sort of adapting to new ways of working from home, and with other more responsibilities we might have, with the current state of the world. Yeah, I was the interesting thing I was going to sort of touch on a little bit. I don't know, not the fickle nature of social media, but it's sort of funny that I'm not, I try to be active on social media. I must say I'm not someone who automatically will like tweet and post about things. I'm getting more used to it. And I mean, I've been on Twitter for a long time, but it was just sort of funny. You have these moments where you just things like catch the audience at a particular time. So yesterday I tweeted out, I'll try and wait a minute. I haven't set up share screen, which was a bit not so great of me. Hopefully that will work. Yeah, I tweeted out this tweet. It was just a bit of a reaction to, I had seen a Kickstarter launch, and the company actually involved. I have a game sign with them, and they still owed me in advance. It's slightly uncertain as to, I don't think it was anything particularly malicious. I think most things with with companies not paying and all these sort of things, I tend to believe on the side of just mistakes or ineptitude, I guess. But anyway, it was just interesting that this simple sort of tweet. I mean, 80 likes maybe to a lot of people is not much, but it's certainly more engagement than I get in most things. So it kind of really kind of hit a nerve sort of thing. Lots of response. I had a lot of people and even other publishers and like reaching out to me privately and asking about it, and yeah, I don't know, it was sort of interesting, and I guess I'm entering a little bit more and more into the world of like freelancing, which is not just to do with game design, obviously, and because I'm not a game developer myself, I sell my designs to publishers. Then I essentially have a lot of clients, where I'm invoicing, and so I'm sort of getting used to that. Yeah, that element. There's an element in all of this where you're chasing people for payments, and I mean, this was a particularly egregious case where someone paid for several months or even up to a year. But you know, it was just a funny. I am fortunate that it's not particularly a lot of money, and I've, you know, a lot of other publishers I work with are great, and you know, who I did a bit of a financial breakdown on the stream a few weeks ago near the end of 2020, and you know, all that money came through and things like that. But it's just interesting, and opened up a bit of a discussion about you know, I guess behavior of publishers and things like advances and. Yeah, it was interesting. I don't know what my takeaway from it is. I'm really thankful to all the support from people, and actually I think it unfortunately is a little bit more common than I would like it to be, probably. Rory says, as someone new to approaching publishers, I feel like lack of information is the hardest thing. More discourse is always good. Yeah, I think yeah, and maybe I will try and use Twitter for that. I mean, it was an interesting balance. I'm not someone who wants to try people in the court of public opinion. So like I specifically didn't want to name the publisher. That wasn't my intention. Although coincidentally or not, they responded to an email quite soon after my Twitter post. And so it looks like it's going to be resolved, thankfully. But yeah, I think having more information about, and I'm also quite happy to sort of privately talk with people about particular publishers in a lot of specifics. I think my difficulty with sort of naming and shaming publishers is that, you know, publishers are rarely just one person. I mean, usually in many cases, the publisher is owned by one person, is operated, but obviously there are a lot of other people who work with that publisher and who have things that rely on that publisher. You know, there are other designers who have games with that publisher. There are illustrators, there are developers, there are graphic designers, there are community managers, and realistically, like, decisions about payment and invoices aren't their responsibility, and it's not their fault that things aren't getting paid. So I don't really want to paint this very broad brush and sort of like smear a company where it's going to negatively affect people who realistically have nothing to do with it. So, but that being said, I'm very happy sort of privately to just to talk to other designers or anyone in the community, and yeah, not to call out, but I think to just recommend to not work with publishers if they've really shown a history of you know, as I said, whether malicious or not, you know, if publishers are sort of a bit inept in this way, it's sort of unfortunately not really worth it. Does it sound like with this publisher was just you fell through the cracks? I mean, they said that there was some problem with emails getting sorted incorrectly in their business emails. I mean, if that is true, I mean, it would explain things that, you know, obviously they weren't getting my emails, you know, over the course of several months. And I guess if it was an actual like spam kind of problem, then that would have stayed the same. So I'm happy to take it on face value. Otherwise, you know, I think, as I said, like publishers are often quite small, and these things sort of just, they can fall through the cracks. Unfortunately, I mean, you know, on a more sort of philosophical or sort of ideological point, yeah, you could say that realistically, unfortunately, things like paying invoices do like fall down in terms of priorities, or it seems that way with publishers, and it probably shouldn't be that way. And that's why, you know, I like to also talk about in a very positive way about publishers who do be really respectful. And actually what I had to very quickly also say that because you know, they've just done the Kickstarter, it's not Alley Cat Games, you know, who also just recently launched a Kickstarter for Tinner's Trail. And I obviously have worked with Alley Cat before. We published Chocolate Factory, and we're having a new roll right will come out with them, all be Kickstarted this year. But I just wanted to make it clear, it's not Alley Cat Games, and they are one of the really great examples of actually a really great publisher in terms of really respecting authors, really trying to pay them as quickly as possible, being very generous and fair in terms of you know, royalty percentages. And just generally, you know, respecting game authors, I would say. So it's been a really positive interaction with them. So yeah, at the same time, I want to sort of shout out really good practices, I guess. Yeah. Rob also says, I guess the problem is that we want to give people the benefit of the doubt and not publicly shame people, but in a few cases, that might mean we can't see a pattern developing if such happens. Yeah, that you're absolutely right. And I think, and I guess I'm still balancing that a little bit. I think I would probably want to chat with a few other people or like kind of mentors or other people I kind of respect, like other sort of game designers. It's tricky. I think like, as it's turned out, it's been resolved, and you know, I'm sort of loath to turn around after someone's, you know, done something to resolve the situation, then sort of like fire a backhand on it. And I think there's also, you know, there's a little bit of a timing thing. Like right now, I don't really want to torpedo a Kickstarter. That's not really what I want to be doing. I know, I also, you know, I've been on the other side. I know how tough it is when you're running Kickstarter. I know all those things. So I agree. You don't want a pattern going, and I'll sort of keep my, you know, keep my eyes open, I guess, is the best I can do realistically. Rob said I had some dealings with Alley Cat over an early prototype last year. I was very happy how they handle it. Definitely go back and talk to them again. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't see what other designers interact with, you know, the same publishers I do. I don't always see that. I mean, sometimes I hear stories and it's sort of interesting. For example, actually, the game we play tested last night, a publisher is interested in that game and they're having meetings with the designer, and I have worked with this publisher as well. So that was sort of funny to see that kind of interaction happening with a different designer and sort of talking about that from kind of a third person perspective. Good morning, Zaid. Good morning. We're talking about my Twitter thread that, well, it didn't exactly blow up, but it had the most, where I was talking about a publisher that hadn't paid me in advance for a while. Yeah, so we're just sort of trying to, I mean, I think better, it's sort of funny with Theo Revere, who's another great streamer. I recommend Theo Sacha. Recommend checking him out. He streams in French, unfortunately, which is a bit of a problem. But I love chatting with Theo, and we co-design. But it's funny that usually, at least the first 15 minutes of any conversation between Theo and I, or when we've got onto game design, usually, good morning, Gerald. Morning. I don't recognize your username. Welcome to the channel and welcome to the stream. Thanks very much for joining. I'm a board game designer, and I just chat about board games on Wednesday mornings. I have sort of longer, more structured streams on Monday and Friday afternoons, but now it's just tea and chatting. So I hope you all have your appropriate hot beverages of the morning. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know where I was exactly. Structured, yes, somewhat structured. So yeah, Theo and I always are chatting about. Oh, I see. Okay, you saw me on Theo's stream. Oh, great. Oh well, good timing. That you must have heard me talk about Theo, and I've summoned his audience or something like that. Yeah, but we're always chatting, and the first part of whenever we chat is, you know, we'll talk, and it always ends with publishers. Like they're. I think the unfortunate thing is actually the tabletop industry. It's still kind of new. There are a lot of publishers that are very young, and there are a lot of things to worry about as a publisher. You know, there's a reason I don't want to ever be a publisher. And it just means that, unfortunately, you see certain mistakes being made, and again, they're very rarely malicious, or basically never. But it's just funny when you've worked with enough publishers, you're just like, oh, am I going to have to go through this again? Are they going to do this particular thing that I know it's not going to really work? Or are they, you know, like a bit of a bugbear I have is that not getting your author copies of your game in a timely fashion. You know, you see everyone else playing your game, which is great, and you would love a copy just to be able to also play it and also feel the kind of new things. And you know, it's a small thing because realistically they always arrive mostly, and you get the copies. But you know, you see on the other hand, like the really best companies. I remember when, you know, my first game was with Days of Wonder, and you know, like I was completely spoiled really as a first experience, as a first interaction with a publisher, because they're just incredible. Like, morning, Nicola, how you going? They, you know, for the whole experience was just incredible. And of course, I didn't know then, I think, how exceptional it was, because it was my first experience. But the amount of development that they did on the game, like the really you know, really in-depth development, the kind of work they did to kind of try a lot of things. I didn't have to do that work. They went off in themselves. We love the game. We're going to now, like, you know, work more on it, think about it. And then, you know, they invited me to come to Paris, and we sat down for a day and sort of played the sort of new version, or with like a few changes. They didn't change like a lot, but they made a few really good changes that really improved the game. But they weren't sort of forcing them on me. They were saying, okay, let's discuss this. How do you feel about that? What do you think? I could have some input on a few things. You know, for example, I remember suggesting that we have, you know, male and female sides of the player characters, for example, and they were really receptive to that. This was back when, this was 7 or 8 years ago, where maybe it wasn't as common as it is today. Maybe it should be even more common. I would argue, but so that was good. They were really receptive to that. They, and they just had a lot of. The first publisher was Days of Wonder, so the publisher of Ticket to Ride, and so my first game was called Relic Runners, and was with Days of Wonder. So it was it was a very special experience. And of course, that extends all the way to the published game, which is amazing. The components are incredible. Like Days of Wonder makes incredible games. But in terms of the way they dealt with me, like I got 24 copies of my game, which is actually very generous. Especially as it's a big game. It's a big Ticket to Ride box, and they I remember the boxes arriving. I lived in a college in Cambridge. And all the mail would go to like a mail room essentially, but the people in charge of the mail room were very happy that they'd got these like 6 big boxes, and I had to somehow transport them to I lived a fair way away from the mail, but I think I had to borrow like a trailer or something, like one of these small like handhold sort of I don't know, like luggage sort of carousel things, and I was walking through the streets of Cambridge. I had to do 2 trips, I think, or something like that. This is Relic Runners, my first published game with Days of Wonder. And I just put them in my room somewhere. And but the excitement was there, and also I got those copies before the game was officially released. So again, like all the parts of that experience were fantastic, because I got the game. I could post some pictures, and and yes, of course, it's an amazing feeling. The first game your first published game is also a very special experience to hold the physical copy. So yeah, just really the whole experience was amazing, and little did I know, I mean, I've had a bit of a charmed kind of start to the industry, I would say, because my third game was with Space Cowboys, which at that time, actually when we signed with Space Cowboys, they hadn't released a single game yet. Splendor hadn't come out when we signed our game with them. And so I didn't really know them very well. Actually, Brett Gilbert, co-designer of Elysium, he knew them because they had worked on his first game when they worked with Asmodee. And of course, that turned out amazing as well, because Space Cowboys are, still, so I had like kind of probably my top, definitely like top 2, I'd say Days of Wonder and Space Cowboys are in my like top 3, top 2 publishers I've ever worked with. And that happened right at the start. So I was probably, I got used to a certain degree of, not luxury, but a certain degree of, not special behavior. What am I going to say? Like great behavior, great experience. And not to say that after that was all downhill and it was horrible, but it was a pretty amazing way to start. They really did do everything right, and I think that's partially experience. I think also Days of Wonder, they weren't releasing that many games. Space Cowboys at that time weren't releasing that many games either, and they still don't release that many games. So I think they had just more time to focus on each release and kind of get all those steps right. And they probably, I think they also, Days of Wonder especially, had quite a lot of experience at that point. So I'm sure that they had kind of procedures in place to kind of make sure you don't miss these things. It was a really incredible experience, really, because I've told this story a lot of times, but the way actually they signed the game, I didn't even pitch the game to them. I had entered a design competition in Spain. It was a finalist, didn't win. And then a representative from that competition went to Essen later in the year, and with some of the prototypes from the competition, showed it to publishers, showed mine to Days of Wonder. I get an email 2 weeks after Essen from Days of Wonder, who I never contacted. And they're like, "Oh, we've played your game. We played your prototype. We'd like to publish it." So definitely a pretty charmed existence. Rory asks, "Where do you keep your designer copies now? My Scorer designer copies are currently taking up space in my wardrobe, but I need to think of a better storage solution." Yeah, that's an interesting point. I don't hold on to many of them anymore. I never really did. I like getting design copies to be able to give to playtesters, to families and friends. Every time I go back to Australia every couple of years, my suitcase would always be full of my own games, which I would then be giving to family and friends back in Australia, because games are A, quite expensive in Australia, and B, not every game actually gets to Australia. So it's my way of trying to get them over there. I like to keep, 1 or 2 copies in shrink, like 1 copy in shrink, just as out of posterity or something, like a museum, like an archive. Even though right now I'm kind of even questioning that, because it's now, tough life, I know, but it's several boxes of just, shrink wrapped games, which Am I going to be carrying around that rest of my life? I guess so. I don't have a say is offering a few free shelves store any games they need, or just one copy a game. Yeah, I'll keep that in mind. Yeah, I probably should gift them away. Yeah, I don't think there's a problem. I mean, then Scorer is not the largest game. I haven't seen the box, right? But it's not. It's, you know, you can keep quite a few of them probably, and I'd recommend. I mean, if you can store them, then do that. And there's something nice about that. And I still have. I mean, now my games are kind of everywhere, unfortunately. Like, I have some in boxes, which are archived. I have some in shelves. I have a pile of other things. Like, I have some games which I'm quite happy to give away. So I sort of have them ready to go, you know, when somebody comes around, or, you know, I've got a few things I can just give to people. Some publishers have been very, very generous also when I've asked for more copies of games. There's a part of me that wants to put in a clause in a contract if a game, if they're going to stop supporting the game, or if they're going to kind of liquidate the game, if I can kind of get copies of it. Although I'm sort of thinking that's probably not the best idea, because then, yeah, you've got a lot of copies that you have to sort of hold on to. But there's one or two games that weren't very successful that I wouldn't mind. I mean, rather than just getting thrown out, I kind of feel like I'd at least want them, even if I'm just going to give away them. I give them as gifts for the rest of my life. You know, I'd rather that than them sort of end up in a dumpster somewhere, which sometimes unfortunately happens with games. So I would also want a copy or two of any of my games that got published, one to play and one to give away to family or friends once it's no longer easy to just get. Yeah, no, that's true. So I generally I have one copy which is like kind of my play copy. I open it, I look at everything, I'll play it with people when I come around. You know, it's in my sort of just normal game library. I have one copy I just keep in shrink, and I hope I will keep it in shrink for as long as possible, because it's, as you said, you never know when something's going to be very hard to get, or for whatever reason, or if I want to open a museum in my honor in the future. No. And then the rest, really, I'm just happy to give things away. Rob says, "Happy Christmas. Here's a copy of my game in Korean." I mean, that's actually another kind of related thing, because I have started trying to. I mean, yeah, you see these photos of designers who have, you know, their games in lots of different languages, and I think that's really cool, actually. And especially some of the more, I mean, they're not exotic, obviously, the people who speak them, but, you know, like seeing Russian on a game, you don't see that very often, or Japanese or Korean or things like that. So there was definitely an interest for me to kind of, I've tried to put in contracts now that a publisher, if they can, to give me one copy of each of the foreign language editions. But then I've started thinking whether that's really a good idea, because then the storage is a real problem, because you're never going to play those games. They're literally for your own, you know, your own like ego, essentially. You know, but I would still like that, and it's reminding me there are a couple of publishers that I still hope that I might be able to get some copies. And I think the other thing is for the publishers themselves, at least a few of them I've spoken to, they don't necessarily have a real. They get sent some copies and they don't really mind about the foreign. They just want to check that the foreign language editions are well produced and correct, and they're not so interested in holding on to them specifically. So yeah, so that, I guess that's the other thing. I'm sort of trying to hunt down the different language copies of my games if possible. But yeah. Hey Michael, how are you? No, not running late at all. It's well, halfway through. So yeah, welcome. Good morning. Good morning. Gerald says, "I'd like to have a copy of each country of my games." Yes, I think having one instance of a particular country would be enough. I don't need everything. But yeah, like the adventure games, I guess that Cosmos has actually been really good. For example, with the adventure games, they always send out like one or two copies of every language, and I suspect that I may have some. That's the other thing about moving around a lot. I've actually moved around a lot in the years I've been a game designer, and I consequently get things sent, because publishers, you know, keep an address on file, and maybe I'm not very good about updating my address, but I have a bunch of things in the UK actually that now will have to somehow make their way to Prague. Rory says, "It feels like there should be some option for games that are no longer under contract, maybe given to hospitals, care homes or something. Landfills feel like such waste." Yeah, I don't know realistically how often that happens, but it's definitely in the contract where they talk about like pulping, essentially. That might just be to cover people. I think most publishers realistically would find some way to like liquidate them. You know, you see even like Asmodee or FFG have these like, you know, Thanksgiving sales where the games are like, you know, $5 or $10 or something, you know, really bargain, you know, things. And I think at that point, I think they probably sell most of them realistically. I don't know how often things are getting pulped, but yeah, I think if that would happen, I would like to have some access to them, or at least, yeah, send them to me rather than throw them out. I'll pay the postage probably. Xate says, I mean, most Euro games wouldn't matter. It's cool to have a different language on the box. Yeah, exactly. There are a lot of, I mean, and that's the great thing, actually. It's why I'm happy that I personally, as a player, like sort of medium weight Euros that are language independent, because it means, because I live in Prague now, so it's a bit hard to get English copies of things, but I can sort of get any language in it, and it's sort of fine, which is good. Foreign language copies were a good source of cube photos. I have got enough cube photos. I was actually thinking the other day, with now that this move to digital prototyping, like I have this massive tub of prototype bits that I just haven't opened for a whole year or year and a half, and I'm sort of wondering if I'm ever going to do anything like that. Rob says that's how we get games of the works and similar. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love the works. The works is sort of, for those who don't know, it's like a discount. It started as a bookshop, right? As a sort of like a discount bookshop where all the books are really, really cheap. And for some reason, I don't know how long ago, like 5 or 6 years ago, maybe even more, they started getting board games. They must have found a wholesaler or someone who was responsible for kind of liquidating board games. And you actually got some old Rio Grande games. There was actually some quite good stuff in there. You know, Madam Ching, for example, by Brenda Cathala. And yeah, I remember there was always this thread about people, because the works had chain. It was a chain, so it was all over the UK. And people would be talking about, oh, at my local store, we've still got 3 copies of this game. And, you know, because some of them were actually pretty good games. There was like Hamburgum, like an early Mac Gertz Rondel game, which is actually really quite reasonable, and really amazing bits, actually, going for like £5 or something. So, yeah, I remember the days of the works. Mike says, it's pretty rare that games get actually destroyed post-contract. Most of the time, they're sold at a very reduced rate to direct to public or to place, to wholesalers or liquidators. Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. I hope that that's how it works out. Roy says, I really want to design a language independent game. I feel like that would be a nice constraint that I haven't considered before. Well, we've been talking about our landscape game, and I think we could make that language independent. So let's do that. We'll take that. We'll take that challenge. Nick, I can see what I can do for postage in Germany. I'll see what I can do. I think one of the things in the works was Rio Grande losing the licenses for a big chunk of their catalog. Oh, really? Oh, interesting. I didn't really know the background with that, really. I guess. Like I said, I've only ever seen 2 games actually get pulped, burned, and that was because of weird legal stuff. Yeah. No, I think that there are definitely 1 or 2 of my games, though, that I'm sure there are large numbers sitting in a warehouse somewhere, and they're also small enough games that I expect that even selling them, you know, like you can't make them a lot cheaper than they already are in a way. So I'll be interested to see kind of where that goes, I guess. But anyway, it's something to think about. There was Pete Burley was a lot of people maybe know Pete. He's a game designer and he self-publishes as well. So his best known are like Camisado and Take It Easy. You know, fantastic games, really great games. And he also would sometimes take on like wholesale, like, you know, kind of liquidated stock, and he'd have his standard Essen would be all these random games that he was sort of selling off, and that would sort of pay for his time at Essen each year, which is sort of funny. Here in Germany, the bookstore chain Jokers has reduced copies. Oh, okay. They say, yeah, the adventure series goes for about €10 each. I might have been looking at them. Yeah, definitely. Well, I can find a way to send you a copy, maybe. I've got certainly of the first few editions, like the first 3 adventure games. Because the contract is with like Cosmos Germany, so like the way it was set up is you'd get like 10 copies of the German edition and then 2 copies of each foreign language. And of course, then I get these 10 German copies, and it's a bit hard to even give them away necessarily. So I may have a few extra German copies if you're interested. Say, I don't know where they are, but I think I have 1 or 2 definitely lying around the place, which is a bit funny. But now we've got them to switch over to get 10 copies of the English edition, which is a bit more useful to me. But it is funny how that kind of works out. And yeah, I even have a game which never had an English edition, actually. The Cosmos did a football duel game, or soccer for those who I don't know who are American or Australian, and that only ever came out in German. I've never actually played it in its published state because of the language dependent. It's not a very language heavy game, but yeah, I still look back on it. Actually, I think it's probably the most surprising product that I've ever designed in a way, because it was Brett and I. Neither of us are football fans. Brett, especially, is not even really into sports at all. And working for a German publisher to make a football game is just sort of a funny. But I think we did actually a pretty good job. I mean, I don't think it did very well, unfortunately, but you know, it's just a funny little memory, I guess, of everything going back. Michael, we were early on talking about my Twitter thread about publishers not paying and things like that, and so that sort of started. Had most engagement I've had in a tweet for a long time. So it says, I have a very mixed set of games, almost half German and almost half English, few in Dutch, and that one random fantasy war game prototype in Russian. Yeah, I am also, my board game collection is now, I'm looking at my shelf, and I have, well, I mean, besides for my own games, I have obviously English, I have French, I have some Czech, I have a Polish copy of something, I have I've just ordered a Dutch copy of a particular game, or not ordered, I bought it secondhand. Yeah, I've got a real hodgepodge of things. And it's also partially because, you know, I go to these fairs. I've been lucky enough to go to fairs like Cannes and in France and Essen and Germany, and, you know, you just sort of pick up things that you can, and, you know, it's sort of, yeah, it's funny, but you make it work, you know, you make it work. Publishers suck. No, well, publishers aren't so bad. And I was also joking with Theo that I also am, a task that is awaiting me, and maybe I'll do it today, or I probably need to do it this week, is the kind of like, it's a new year. Publisher, I have a project with you, but I haven't heard from you for 6 months. Is this project still happening? Do you have any news? You know, I try to check in, you know, at least every kind of 3 months, and I feel like, you know, we're at that stage in the new year to kind of go like, yep, I know it's been, and I didn't try to do this last year because, you know, the pandemic obviously changed everything, but, and I know it was hard for publishers, so I you know, I think I relaxed my expectations, but, you know, and I guess it is still difficult, but yeah, at some point you just sort of have to like reconnect and go like, so, are you still publishing this game? I haven't, you know, I haven't heard anything. Have you got a plan? You know, and things like that. So yeah, I think those emails are going to go out these coming days. Like says, he's got a mix of English, Polish, Japanese, Chinese, and Korean. Oh well. Very nice, very nice. I can add a copy to the shipment of bits. Everyone wants free bits. Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, it's funny. Like even getting prototype bits, I feel like it's one of those things you fall into as a game designer, like acquiring all these pieces and then realizing actually, I used to be. I mean, I still am the same. I love charity shops. My mother in particular is a huge charity shopper. Or we called them op shops, like opportunity shops in, I guess there was opportunity shops. They were just called op shops. I don't know why they were called op shops actually in Australia. Like St. Vincent de Paul, and you have like the cancer, like British Heart Foundation in the UK and all these other things. And my favorite, I mean, I love going to them anyway, but once I was a game designer, then there was all those even really horrible games suddenly were like, oh, £1 and this is full of risk pieces. Oh, fantastic. You know, I've definitely dismembered a few risk sets in my time, and oh, there's some nice coins in here. This will be perfect. Or, you know, when you get anything with wooden pieces, that's even better. And you always remember, and you also remember the times when you found like that amazing bargain. Like I found a copy of Pirates Cove, which is another Days of Wonder game, for like £5 once. Completely kind of not shrink, but pretty much almost shrink. And actually, my mum back in Australia now, she does the same thing without me knowing. She will go into all the op shops and she'll just buy, if she sees any board game, like she doesn't necessarily know much about board games, but if she sees anything that looks vaguely interesting, she'll just buy it, as long as it's like a you know, reasonably cheap price. So every time I come home, part of my Christmas gift now is a very big bag of just random charity shop board game finds, which is really fun. And then my mum tells me, oh, can you just sift through the ones that, like, I don't have to sift through them and like, oh, mum, you found like, this is really great. Like she found, I don't know where they are actually, now that I think about it. She found a copy of the original Civilization, Francis Tresham Civilization and Advanced Civilization, which was kind of the expansion to it, or the kind of reimagining of it. Some of the Advanced Civilization is in punch. It hasn't even been punched out. And she found them about the equivalent of £2 each. Like really, really great additions, which is sort of amazing. Yes, people are talking about prototype bits. So the first prototype piece I got were large wooden yellow discs from Christian Usby. I was so excited that this designer IMI would give me something to make games with. Oh, well, I'm happy to. Well, if people are looking for prototype pieces, I can maybe give some things away. Yeah, Rory says so many prototype bits in my cupboard that I've never touched. Yeah, and that's true. From all these charity shop games, you store them and you never know when you might use them. But I found more and more that I guess I'm not led by like prototype components, so you just sort of make it work. The bit spiel material won't ship to the UK for the time being. I'll just have to curb my addition to buying animal wooden bits. Yeah. Brexit, yes. Yes, what a fun bag of gifts I could do. I should do. Well, yeah, I mean, I wasn't streaming at the time, but but she recently for my birthday, my mum sent me an email with photos of that were my birthday gifts for me to look at. But it's amazing what finds its way in Australia, because a lot of games don't make their way to Australia, but for whatever reason, she's found some amazing Harbour games in really good state. Ticket to Ride, I remember she found basically an in-shrink copy of Ticket to Ride Europe for like £2. Yeah, some really great stuff actually she's found over the time, and even classics, like I saw she found a copy of Dixit. I don't have a copy of Dixit, so that's nice to add to my collection and things like that. So very lucky. Morning, Alex. Morning. So it says, if they have free shipping with Germany, you could get them to me to send on, then you'd also get the chocolate. I see. Yeah, I don't know how realistic. I just had to mail something from the Czech Republic to the UK actually, and the post office was very like, we have no idea how long this is going to take. So yeah, I don't know if that's all been sorted out, sort of postage from Europe to the UK, but we'll see. Rory says, I think I'd rather have a CNC cutter than a cupboard full of wooden cubes. I guess the former is a bit expensive. I do not know what a CNC cutter is. I'm going to presume it's something to cut things with, but after than that, no worries. Look away, Alex. Hope so. We've got about 15 minutes left, and then we'll be heading off to Bez's stream for an early morning raid. But yes, well, it's good. I mean, in a way, like curbing your prototype, your component purchases is probably not a bad point. The other story I talk about is the best finds I've ever had was I found a copy of Robo Rally, the original Robo Rally with the pewter miniatures, mostly unpunched, just sitting on the side of the road in a kind of like on a take me table. Like there was a little table outside somebody's house, and there were some books and this game, and just outside Cambridge railway station. And one evening, and yeah, they'll just like take it for free. This perfect copy of Robo Rally. And as I always say, the interesting thing was in about 10 minutes after I picked it up, it rained very heavily. So that game would have just completely been destroyed had it not been picked up, essentially, because it was just sitting outside on a table. So it's yeah, that's probably my most incredible find. Although now I'm looking, it's not very interesting, but my mother also in Australia found like a in-shrink copy of Labyrinth, like quite an old copy of Labyrinth. Journey Through Europe, which is also like quite an early Ravensburger kind of game. Yeah, so I've been quite happy with everything. Where it says, my only charity shop was a copy of Dice Heist, which I very much enjoy. I would have, yeah, Dice Heist is, I'm gonna grab that game actually. I feel like I remember, because it's a game by Trevor Benjamin and Brett Gilbert. This is a much underappreciated game. I think it is fantastic. It's a fantastic little filler. You can see a little bit. It's kind of a little push your luck set collection card game. This is maybe I should have kept this for the normal thing, but you have like some little dice and all these and just deck of cards, and you're basically stealing different objects from different museums with your thieves, which are dice. And it's it's just such a clean game. It's like a great example of what Brett and Trevor did do in terms of like simplicity, and it's always a lot of fun. Like it's that like roll your dice. I hope I can. You basically have to declare where you're going to try and steal from before you roll your dice, and you're always like, oh, can I get the 6? And and things sort of like there's like a jackpot system where more and more cards get added to a museum as it doesn't get stolen, and then when somebody gets that huge score, it feels great, and it all plays in like 15-20 minutes. Plays up to I think 5 players, I want to say. Yeah, 2 to 5 players. Really simple to play. I really think pretty much anybody could play it, pretty much. And I think really underappreciated. I don't know how well it did in the end in terms of selling, but it's the game I hope that they will find another publisher for, or convince AEG to republish one day, because it's just a fantastic game. So if anyone doesn't know Dice Heist, would really recommend it. Probably can get quite cheap copies, I'd imagine. Don't let I think the artwork and things might have hurt a little bit. It's kind of like cartoony, but yeah, don't let the art or anything put you off. It's a fantastic game. Yeah, just great. Michael says, I think my best charity shops were Adeptus Titanicus, an old games workshop that cost you 50p. Oh, very good. And you got a Dark Tower for $5. Wow, that sounds very good. Yeah, I mean that's I think that for me that's why I love op shops, because you can get that kind of cool feeling so easily, and it's just like it's so little effort. When my mum comes over when she came over to the UK at various points for she would visit me on holidays. Every time we would be traveling around the country, like not every town, but most towns we go to, we'd always go to because in the UK, the great thing is all these are changed. So, you have the same charity shops in every town essentially. And like, that would be like one of the things we'd always do. Like my parents have traveled halfway across the world, but my mum is still quite happy to go think. Dice Heist is 125 euros. Wow. Somebody is definitely trying to scalp that. Is it European Amazon or something? Well, it's Euro, so it must be, I guess. Yeah, there may have also been some problem with distribution outside of the US. I imagine that like the US copies. How much is it on Board Game Geek, for example? Like, I'm just intrigued. Dice. Let's have a look together. Whoops. Okay, I obviously can't. Nice. Okay. And it apparently has been removed from the board game. Can anyone try on their own computer to find Dice Heist on? It's really strange. Am I just Dice Heist game? Oh, all right. I don't know why I couldn't find it on Board Game Geek before. That was a bit weird. You can purchase a copy on Board Game Geek. I mean, it's still kind of expensive, I guess, like kind of 20 euros, but at least it's not the crazy thing. Rory, the Dice Heist art isn't the best. I'd almost definitely buy a re-release with updated graphics. Yeah, I think that's true. I think that would definitely would help. Nicholas says, I can't remember many now, but a great find was Tikal and El Grande for a euro each. Wow. Okay, yeah. German, like a charity shop's very common in Germany. I don't know so well, because I just think about like the amazing game, like just thinking a little bit about Essen, like you have those amazing kind of secondhand sellers, but just the quality of games and like the quantity of them in one country, and if they kind of can trickle down to the charity shop. No, there really aren't many charity shops. That's a pity. If you combine like the board game output and the kind of history of Germany with the British or the English charity shops, would be like, you'd be heaven. I would be constantly spending time in there probably. So it's trading board games over BGG goes very well, I find. Yeah, I mean that's true. I often when I'm looking at BGG, like there's a lot of German or I guess in Europe, one of the great things about the EU is that there's usually enough people selling copies, and as we were talking about before about like language independence, everything's a lot easier when you can get any language copy. I'm actually trying to get a copy, the Dutch edition of First Class. It's like a Hans and Gluck, medium weight card-driven Euro, and it'll be in Dutch, but it doesn't matter because it's all kind of language independent. So it said I just got Leaving Earth for Wingspan expansion. Oh, so you were trading games? I see. Do you have like maths trades? Is that quite common in Germany as well? Yeah, I should probably look at the maths trades now because, yeah, I guess there are probably like European maths trades, which I think I never did from the UK because I think the extra postage didn't make sense. But I guess it's probably a really good way. Like Prague's pretty centrally located, I guess. Arnold's saying in Berlin, almost every flea market has tons of used board games. Oh. So once pandemic's over, Arnold, I'm coming to visit you, and first stop flea market, and I get lots of board games. So it says I don't know how to do maths trades. I just do one-to-one with people. Okay, thanks, Mike, for that. Well, I totally recommend check out the thread, this post that Michael put out. I took part in a few in the UK, and especially ones around conventions were really good. They did these kind of no-ship maths trades where like everyone would bring the games to a convention and then you'd swap them. So it sort of took away all the hassle and like the cost of postage and all these things. But they're really great. I love maths trades because sometimes you will just get some great trade that it's one of these things where it sort of optimizes for everybody. It's up to you, like whether you want to take part or not. So like if you see a game that you really want in a maths trade, then you can just put some games up for it. And you know, if you manage to get that trade, then fantastic. Yeah, I mean, if you're interested, I can. There's a lot of good tutorials on board gaming. I would certainly recommend it. Actually, I think you know, it depends like what games you want, but I always like looking through. And there are a few kind of not Grail games, but there are still like a few games that I'd like to try, and I think like trading obviously is a good way to do that. No worries, Rory. Yes, you should probably talk to your girlfriend. Do that. Thanks very much for dropping by. Have a good day. Yeah. So flea markets. Okay. So I'm going to go to Berlin because I need to actually meet Arnold. I need to meet you in real life. With Arnold and I've been working on this game together completely virtually. So it would be good to, because I stalked him on the internet to start with. But yeah. Gerald says, in these complicated times, how do you present your games to publishers? Mail, short video, phone calls, video calls? Yeah, that's a good question. I've been asked that a little bit recently. So it's mostly virtual at the moment. I build a lot of things in Tabletop Simulator, and we set up a Skype call, and I can like share the screen, and I can like move pieces around, show them the thing. If they're particularly interested, then you know everyone can log into Tabletop Simulator and we can play it together. That's happened with the publisher. So yeah, that's generally it's like through Skype, and then with a combination of Tabletop Simulator. And then if publishers are interested, then I still will send them like a print and play, or I will mail them a physical copy of the prototype if they're interested past that meeting. Yeah, that's kind of been how it's been happening. I have to admit, I haven't approached publishers that I haven't worked with. I probably need to do that actually. You know, and I'm going to have to, that's the other kind of thing I have to do this year is be a bit better at like setting up these meetings, as I was so used to doing everything through conventions. So it obviously is a bit more difficult when you don't know the publisher, and like virtual meetings can always be a little bit weird, but generally I think people are pretty open and professional with how this works. We're all kind of used to video conferencing by this point. So yeah, that's how I do it. I hope that kind of answers the question. But yeah. So like, and it might start with an email to you know set up that meeting, obviously. But yeah, so like those earlier parts are not so different to how it was before. You're always sending emails to a publisher to kind of, and often it was to set up a physical meeting. Now you're setting up a virtual meeting. Yes, Berlin meetup, definitely. It's not even that far from Prague, so you know, I would yeah, that would be very cool. I mean, who knows when it'll happen? Are there any good German, like kind of small local German conventions that you would recommend in terms of when everything starts up again? I always liked. Yes, I know Leipzig is a bit closer to Prague. That's true. Yeah, exactly. BerlinCon in the summer. Okay, I will, because I always liked these smaller. I've really come to like smaller games conventions actually. Like Aircon in the UK, I really like. Paris LED is not necessarily a very small one anymore, but it's a little bit different, and that you know, it was kind of a cool thing to, yeah, you get to attend cons not purely as a business thing again. I think with Essen and the bigger fairs, I got so used to that you go to these, you know, you go to these fairs just for business, and it was fun, but you weren't playing games and you sort of experienced it in a different way. But I can kind of rediscover that kind of feeling of being a gamer at these small affairs, because you're not doing so much business necessarily, which is quite cool. Well, we're coming up to about 5 minutes to go. So I hope, what are people's plans for today? I hope, well, I hope you all have a fantastic day. I hope it's been a good way to start the day. If anyone's got any last minute questions, feel free to shoot. As always, I am streaming. I stream on Mondays and Fridays at 5 p.m. European time, 4 p.m. GMT. Sorry, Zikar Sama. Sorry, I'm getting your name wrong. You can catch up on it, but I'll be back on Friday at 5 p.m. European or 4 p.m. UK time, and I do these streams on Wednesday morning. And sometimes I do some random game playing streams on the weekend, but we'll see how that goes. Michael's got to work writing stuff for Amazon. Is this for like sales copies of your games or something like that, where you have to? Yeah, that'd be interesting. But yeah, I hope to catch. So Mike will be streaming later. Usually you're streaming at 11:30 UK time. Oh yeah, sorry, you've literally said it, 11:30. So catch Michael later if you're interested. Thanks for all the recommendations. Spiel Doc in Duisburg. I have some good friends in Duisburg actually. It's a good chance to meet them, to catch up with them. If I'm going to do that, of course I can't imagine this new world where we'll actually get to travel and see people. I'm hoping it will happen soon. I should say I hope everyone's safe and well. I know it's a tough time for all. Okay, so pitch material for Hub Games titles, just getting things updated. Okay, yes, well, fun part of being like working for a publisher and things like that. And Michael, we need to do the stream together. We were going to. I'm going to call you out on stream because you haven't answered my email. No, but I'm hoping that we can have a stream sometime talking about game designers on stream. I just saw Amari Akil yesterday. If anyone's not following Amari, he's a US-based game designer who was doing a really great. Who started also streaming about board game design. And he was designing on stream yesterday. Kind of European afternoon time, and I'm hoping that we can have a stream just to talk about game designers on stream, because it seems to be happening a bit more, maybe with Bez and Michael, if you are happy to be part of it. That's fine. I sent it to your Hub Games account, and I was a bit worried about that it might not have made its way to you, but I'll reconnect with you on Twitter and we'll figure it out. Yeah, oh, yes, what is this outside? I don't go outside. What were your other times again? Yeah, so I stream on Mondays and Fridays, 4 p.m. GMT, 5 p.m. European time, and Wednesday mornings, 9 a.m. GMT, 10 a.m. CET. So yeah, those are my times. One day I will be organized enough to have a good. It's all in the schedule below that you can see in my. If you click the schedule bit on Twitch, it'll have that as well. The Twitch name of that American designer, yeah, it's like a Killerverse. Just going to find it now. If anyone else is quicker than me and is able to find it, then that would be great. Has anyone put it in? Oh, yeah, thanks, Michael. Yeah, a Killerverse. Nobody is a... I would put... Hold on. A Killerverse. I think that's going to work. Yeah, so I'll drop the thing in the chat. So I don't have like shout outs or anything like that, but that's his Twitch channel. So definitely check it out. Yeah, and thanks very much for everyone dropping by, and thanks to the new people. Gerald, I haven't seen you before, so thanks very much for coming by, and I hope you enjoyed the stream. And now we are going to raid Bez. Who has Bez gone live? Does anyone know? I'm looking. Not yet. Okay. Well, we'll hang on. 10:01. Bez goes live. Okay. We have 2 minutes. Everyone, hold on. Yeah. And I hope everyone. I hope everyone has a fantastic day. Enjoy your work or whatever you're working on, and catch everybody on Friday. Yeah, I will finish off my tea, which I never. It's a board game design cuppa where the host never drinks much of their tea because too busy talking. But yeah. Yes, talk amongst yourselves while we wait for Bez to sort out what she's doing. Yes. Coffee with Matt's a nice wake up. Excellent, excellent. I pretty much just chug tea. I think you're doing it wrong though. I mean, I don't know. If you put enough milk in, I guess that can fix most of the problem. Yeah, I've got to come up with a good afternoon tea. I think I'm. I don't know if I should be drinking caffeinated tea in the afternoons anymore, or because I don't drink any coffee at all. So I think like my caffeine tolerance is lowish, and I've only just started really drinking tea very regularly. So I hate cold tea, so I drink it fast. Okay, it's a good thing. So do you all come here often, eh? So shall we talk about board games? Do you like board games? Yeah, buy me a drink and I'll tell you about it. Yeah, they're fun times. Yeah, but maybe I can sort of explore some different sort of teas, but that would also be kind of an interesting thing. Or like blend. Does anyone make their own teas? Like, I guess there must be hobby tea makers, right? Where you make your own blends and you get, black tea leaves or something and mix them with various bits and pieces. Could be interesting. My hobby of trying to knit this year is going very, very slowly. So get that Earl Grey, make it happen. Yeah, yes, my favorite. I'm running out. I had to import my Earl Grey from the UK. I don't know, my Twinings Earl Grey. Now with Brexit, that's all going to become much more difficult. I drink latte macchiatos. Okay, that's my favorite tea. I think. Wait, hold on a sec. Do I not know something about latte macchiatos that I have not understand? Someone's been watching Star Trek. I'm afraid that I've missed. I haven't watched Star Trek, so I whatever that reference is, it's gone over my head. I'm afraid to say, but yeah, it's funny how those things work out. Yes. Ah, Bez, what are you doing? I'm like the warm-up act. I'm like the for the late night talk show hosts, the people who go out and like warm up the crowd. I feel like I'm that for Bez, hopefully. But if she's not going to get on time, then it's not going to work. The next gen captain drinks Earl Grey tea hot. I see. Okay, they've just gone live. There she is. All right, let's head over to the raid. To the raid. Wait, can I find? Oh, here we go. To the raid. To the raid. All right, thanks everybody. Have a great day, and I'll catch you on Friday. To victory! Let's go.